How's it going, guys? This is CapoRegime coming at you with something a little bit different today. This isn't going to be a main playthrough video. Just so you guys know, we just released episode 10, I think, a couple days ago. We're in the process of filming episode 11, but we just want to take a little break just to break down the basics of combat just a little bit. I've been releasing shorts and TikToks, and I'm getting like a lot of questions from you guys around, you know, how to be a little more survivable in combat, how to enjoy combat, and man, combat is so hard, things like that. And I totally get it. At first, it can be. This game doesn't hold your hand around combat, right? So I just want to demystify it for you guys just a little bit, break down combat at its really simple level. I'm not gonna go too in depth into certain techniques that I use, but just some fundamentals that you guys can use in your playthroughs. And maybe if you're already a vet and you don't know some of this stuff already, you might benefit as well. But this is mostly geared towards beginners. So just to let you guys know about where I am right now, we are in the town of Riposte. We have Captain Bernard here. I'm not going to give you any spoilers and talk about who he is particularly, or what the city is, but basically once you get far enough in the storyline, which isn't too far, I think it's maybe like 3 or 4 of the main quests in, you'll get to a point where Bernard, and it'll be apparent in the story about when he'll be out here, but once you do get to that point, he'll be out here most of the day, from around, after 10 a.m. or maybe even earlier than that, until it starts getting dark, and he'll be accessible for some extra training and to get your basic fundamentals of some of the things that he can teach you about combat down. But before I get into that, I want to go into a few stat-based factors. So let's go ahead and hop into the stat screen here. So just a couple things I want to glaze over real quick are some of the factors that go into how well you'll be able to do in combat, right? So if we look at the bottom right in the stat kind of snapshot area down here, you can see I'm level 16, so I'm pretty not far, but a good ways through my playthrough. So Henry, the main protagonist, he's already pretty beefy, right? He has some good armor, some good stats going, and I really want to highlight 2 sections here, and that's this section highlighted in blue, the strength, agility, and vitality. So strength, in a nutshell, it governs how hard you're able to hit, and I believe how well you're able to cope with incoming damage as well. Agility, I believe this governs your dodges, your actual kind of ability to dodge, as well as parry attacks that are coming in, which we'll go over in a bit. Vitality, I believe this mostly governs health, and I don't know if it governs hunger at all. I might have to do a little more research on that, but just how much health you have overall and how survivable you're going to be in combat. Speed down here, I believe, governs the speed of your attacks, right? So that's that part. And another factor about this main stat screen you might want to pay attention to is this section really just has the breakdown of your stats when it comes to your weapon you're using, the bow you got, as well as the armor pieces, and how well you're able to cope with most of these categories. I believe this first category is going to be the stab, right? So in that tooltip that comes up, the next is slash, and the next is blunt. So when it comes to the weapons, obviously that's how much they do, or that's how powerful they are in each category. So my weapon, which is a longsword, has a stab rating of 49, a slash rating of 68, and a blunt rating of 3. So that's exactly what you'd expect for a sword. And just the opposite, I guess, goes for the armor pieces. My head armor has a stab protection rating of 23, a slash protection rating of 26, and a blunt protection rating of 13. So you can kind of see how that works across all of your armor and kind of add up what your total defense against each kind of damage type is. But anyway, that's enough of that. I think the most important factors that you're going to want to consider, especially as you're progressing through the game and gaining levels, is your stat perk breakdown. So I'm going to go over the main levels first. As you can see, I have one stat awaiting, so I can kind of show you guys what that process looks like. So whenever you reach a certain level in any of these categories, and this one being the main level here, you'll be awarded a perk point, which you can distribute however you see fit. But one important thing to note is if I select one of them and hit Q, I can see the info. Each one of these perks has a minimum level requirement. So this has a minimum level requirement of 12, so that's why I'm able to distribute a point there. But this one has a minimum level of 10, but does require the first or the second first aid in order to be gotten. So I got the level requirement, but I don't have the perk requirement. But let's see here. So I do have one perk point. I think I'm going to put it in first aid, which you can see here in the info section. The bandages are 25% more effective. So that's a perk that I have now. So from now on, any bandage I use is going to be 25% more effective because of this perk. But when it comes to combos, this is kind of secondary, how well you're able to heal, I guess, after combat. But during combat itself, one that you might want to look out for is Brute. So this one, and a lot of these perks, they have a quid pro quo kind of effect, meaning that you do get a bonus in one category, and in the case of Brute, you get +2 strength bonus, but you'll lose a point in charisma as well as speech. So you got to consider that, what you're really going for, what your playstyle is when you choose to distribute perk points. But this one was good for me because, I want to, obviously, the stronger I am in combat, the more survivable and damage, and the more damage I'm going to do. Cumin Killer. So I've killed enough Cumins, which I won't do any spoilers, but they're going to be one of the main antagonists in the game and one of the most common enemies you're going to see. So I've killed so many Cumins that my reputation precedes me. Cumins from now on will be afraid of me, and there's a 50% greater chance that they'll flee. So this one is kind of hit or miss for me because, although it might be useful at some points when I get overwhelmed by, you get overwhelmed by too many enemies, I'd rather have them stand and fight. So this one's kind of like, I don't know how I feel. I guess another one worth mentioning that's really good. A lot of the time you're going to be fighting enemies out in the wilds and not in the cities. So the Savage perk in the wilds, you have a +1 bonus to strength, agility, vitality, and speech. So that one is pretty huge. You're going to be fighting in a lot of remote areas, and this one comes in handy more often than not. I think that's all within the main level. I won't glaze too much on the main level, but what you really want to look out for as far as the main stats go are your strength, agility, and vitality. So if I go into strength real quick, let's see. Dreadful, this one kind of hit or miss, just like that Cumin Killer thing. Foes will be more likely to flee from you, so that one, you could do without, but a good one is this Heavy Swing. Your attacks cause greater damage, but cost you 10% more stamina. So with this one, you got to watch out for your stamina that much more, and stamina is a pretty important factor that I'll go into in a bit, but yeah, that's just something you have to consider with a lot of these. Headcracker, so this one is pretty much a free bonus. There's no cons to it. You have a 10% greater chance of knocking out an opponent with a blow to the head, so that one I think is an easy pick every single time. Tight Grip is another one with no cons as well. Your stamina regeneration will not slow down in combat, even in a weapon backswing, so that's awesome. Clinch Master, I think, is another one. Gives you a 40% higher chance of overpowering your opponent in a clinch, which is good, and I'll demonstrate what a clinch is if you guys don't know already. Stronghold, blocking an opponent's strike with your shield will cost you 30% less stamina. So this one, I don't usually use a shield that often, but once I start using a short sword or a mace, for example, I might employ a shield, and then that's where that perk will come in handy. So that's enough for strength. Let's go into agility. Dodger is good. I think this is pretty essential in combat. I'll demonstrate what a dodge is, but without this perk, you won't be able to dodge in combat, which sucks, right? So let's see. Fast Striker, your attacks will demand 30% less stamina, and this is another quid pro quo kind of perk, but will also cause slightly less injury. So more speed, less damage, so that's just something you have to consider as well. I think that's it for agility. Going into vitality, my vitality is not that high, so I don't have that many perks, but a good one is Blood Rush. So after beating your first opponent, the power of your attacks will increase for a while, and your stamina will generate faster. So this is pretty much like, you just got a rush from killing your last opponent, and in many to one scenarios, you'll have that much more of a chance and power against each subsequent opponent you fight in that engagement. So that one's a good one. Thick Blooded's also good as well. If you're getting overwhelmed with a lot of strikes, a lot of the time you'll bleed, especially if you don't have adequate protection against the attack, so that one is good to have. Another is, okay, no, we don't need to worry about speech. I think I went over all of these. So last part I want to go over, and I've stayed in here long enough, I want to get more into the combat, is, you know, some of these. So you'll see training is weapon specific, right? So you can see an axe I only have a level 2, mace in level 2, bow's pretty low as well, but sword I'm level 20 in because that's where I like to spend most of my time in combat and is the most satisfying to me. So, you know, once you level a certain amount of times on a particular weapon, you'll start getting perk points and are able to spend them on combos. So combos are awesome. I think the main advantage to being able to execute some of these combos in combat is that if you successfully chain strike and land, and mind you, a block counts as land. If your opponent blocks one of these strikes, it'll still count as a chain strike in the combo is what I'm trying to say. You know, if you do successfully land all three, in the case of blunt strike, for example, the third attack will be an unblockable, pretty significantly damaging attack. And I'll try to demonstrate some of these when we go into training with Bernard in a sec. But that, I think, is the most, the biggest advantage. So some combos with the longsword, like False Edge, which I'll demonstrate, do a lot of damage. Scar Maker is a good one and really easy. So the rhythm is a slash, stab, stab, slash from the bottom left, and then 2 pokes is relatively easy to do. And I'll demonstrate that. But as you can see, also, there are certain minimum level requirements for these. So it looks like I only have one more combo to get. So that's pretty good. We have most of our sword combos, but the same goes for all of these. I'm not very practiced in a mace or in an axe, so my level is low and I don't have any combos for them, which, you know, hopefully I can correct soon because a lot of those combos are pretty cool as well. But we're going to focus on sword combat today. I spent long enough in the screen, guys. We're going to talk to Bernard, and I can kind of give you an overview of what this guy has to offer for you early on. So once you do get far enough in the storyline, you have Bernard out here. You're able to talk to him and get training from him. In the training dialogue section here, you'll have a few choices. So the top 2 will always just be a free practice with either a practice weapon or a real weapon. The second one is my preference because you get more experience with a real weapon, just overall, right? The next one is I'd like to learn combos, and I believe the next 2, which aren't an option for me anymore, but if you're just starting out, will be an option for you, will be learning how to parry and learning how to master stroke, which I think are huge when it comes to combat in this game. If you don't do the training with Bernard for those 2, you're going to have a terrible time trying to get through any combat situation in the game. So you want to make sure as early as possible in your playthrough that you're doing those. So as soon as you do those, I think another benefit is learning combos as well as being able to buy training from him. So I'm already maxed out in my training for swords, so it's not showing up in here anymore, but I still have defense and axe ready to be trained in. So without further ado, let's get into real combat training. I can demonstrate some combos for you guys.
With real weapons. A bit cocky, ain't you?
I'll show you guys the Scar Maker and basically some of the basics of combat. So we're going to go into longsword. Alright guys, I'm going to show you guys a dodge first of all, and that's that perk for dodging and agility that I told you about. It's pretty essential. Yeah, let's see if we can land a dodge here. There's a dodge. Let's see if we can do another. You just have to time it for when he attacks you. So that's a dodge. And the first essential parry that I talked to you about will be executable by pressing Q when that little green sword icon comes up. So we just parried him because we timed it. But if you time it just perfectly, you'll get a perfect parry, which looks like that. So it's going to do massive damage to your opponent, especially if you know the animation is that anything that attacks his head. It's going to be super powerful. But let me show you guys now how to follow up and capitalize on a perfect parry. So let's see if he comes in again here. He comes in again. So immediately after, you can follow up with another strike just to be able to take advantage of that parry. And, you know, once you start to get a little more advanced, you can follow up parries or perfect parries or master strokes or ripostes, whatever you want to call them, with a combo. So we're going to try Scar Maker, which, if you remember earlier, was slashing from the bottom left and then 2 pokes. So let's see if we can land it here. Okay, we'll master stroke and let's try to land that Scar Maker. No, we didn't. Okay. Yeah, so the other thing about combos, guys, is you need to have it like perfectly sequenced, like one strike after the other, or else it won't execute that combo for you. So let's try again. So, down, poke, poke. Yeah, we see we didn't get it. Let's try again. So it is kind of hard to land combos, guys, but it is worth going for them. So, you know, once we do eventually land this, it's going to be devastating. And another thing is keeping your stamina up, guys. You definitely want to keep your stamina up, because if you get caught and getting hit a lot when your stamina is down, you're definitely going to take a lot more damage otherwise. Because your stamina, when your stamina is all the way up, you're much more able to deal with that incoming damage and react accordingly. Whereas if you're tired, you're just going to take that damage to the face, right? So we're going to go ahead and try again, just so I can demonstrate that Scar Maker for you guys, as well as talk about other things to think about during combat. So one other thing that I didn't mention yet is locking on. So locking on can be done by pressing tab when you're targeting somebody, and that'll lock on. The advantage to that is you're able to lock onto your opponent and not kind of take your focus off of them. But the disadvantage, I think, which is not so obvious but may be obvious, is if you're facing multiple opponents, it's going to be hard to switch your target. But you can do that simply by pressing tab and cycling through them. So that's usually what I do. But let's see if we can land that Scar Maker, so I can show you guys like just how devastating it can be. There's the Scar Maker, guys. So it took me a while. He kept getting overly damaged and quitting before I could land it, but there it is. And I just did a little master stroke just for demonstration. Let's see if we can land the Scar Maker after that, which would be icing on it. Yeah, there it goes. So that's ideally what you want to do. You want to land that Parry Riposte, and you want to land a combo after. And Bernard's really tough, but if that's any other run-of-the-mill bandit or some other opponent that you run into, that's downing him in a single hit. So just keep that in mind, guys. It's might be hard to land a combo at first, but be persistent, because it's going to pay off, right? Bam. So Bernard's taking him pretty well. I think it's because he has a pretty good helmet on, but most opponents aren't going to have a good helmet on. So just to summarize, guys, a few takeaway points is just try to understand your weapon and stats and how they affect you in combat. Keep your stamina up high. Make sure you do the parry and master stroke training with Bernard as early as possible. Do all the combo training. Just do any other training that he has available for you, and you have the extra money. Distribute those, you know, invest in your weapon skill, right? So sword is going to be the best because it has the most variety of combos and things that you can do. It's going to be the most versatile because the sword skill governs both short swords and long swords. So it's kind of like killing two birds with one stone, but obviously the further you make it into the game, the more beneficial it's going to be for you, enjoyment, as well as variety-wise, to start using things like axes and maces. But anyways, guys, it's not that hard. It can be kind of hard to know what you're doing at first, but once your stats go up, your armor and gear improves, and you learn how to time those master strokes and memorize the combos, you're gonna be terrorizing the land in no time, right? Whether that's as a hero or, you know, terrorizing the local villages and plundering to your heart's delight. But anyway, hope that was helpful for you guys. This is CapoRegime, and we'll see you in the next episode. And I'm going to try to release more tutorials like this, but tell me what you guys think, just so I know whether or not this content was helpful, or you'd like to see it in another shape or fashion, or let me know about things that I may have missed that you'd like me to cover. Anyway, peace out.